Hi, and welcome once again to the AKF channel. My name is John Michael, and today we're interviewing a very special guest, and I do mean special this time because it's actually one of my personal friends, Nicole Stark. She is an autistic child parent, as well as could possibly have autism herself. So we have forged together a bunch of interview questions for her to ask, and today we want to hear from her perspective about what it's like to raise an autistic child. So, Nicole, how's it going?
I'm doing good.
Natalie doing okay?
Yeah, she's really tired. She's been having trouble sleeping. I haven't kept so much of a schedule over the summer because it's summertime and I'm realizing that's backfiring.
So, Nicole, first question is, how did your daughter Natalie get diagnosed?
Well, she started eating things that weren't appropriate for her to be eating, like her own hair. Instead of choosing to eat food, she would chew on hair like it was bubble gum and then spit it out afterwards. And I didn't notice it at first until she lost like 3 or 4 inches of hair.
Jeez.
And then I was like, whoa, something's not right here. So I found out she was eating her hair, and sometimes she'd even put dog hair in her mouth if she wasn't pulling her own hair out of her head. And then after that, I took her to the doctors to make sure it wasn't something like pica or something like that. And they said that she was fine and there was nothing wrong with her, so this is all a mental thing that was causing it. So it's a mental thing and I want to stop it. The only thing I could do is bring it to the doctors. At first they said that it was like an adjustment disorder. She's just having trouble accepting new things and new places, and she was getting bullied there too, so the stress could have just made it worse. Because she was at YMCA at the time for a summer camp. And that's when she really started eating her hair. So, but it was even after she was no longer in there anymore. We found her eating stuff like plastic. Like, we bought her some darts and, what's it called? A target with an arrow, with a bow. There we go. And she ate the rubbery part of the arrow off. And I don't know if she swallowed that or not, but she did chew parts off of it. Okay. So I took her to the doctors, and at first they diagnosed her with adjustment disorder, and they said that if she doesn't respond to any therapy, then we're going to go ahead and reevaluate her. So they reevaluated her, and about a year ago, I'd say, they upgraded it to autism, ADHD and autism.
Interesting. So how did you feel when you found out that Natalie got diagnosed? How did you feel personally?
I was actually not surprised, considering that I have ADHD myself, and there are signs that I have autism. So when I found out that she had autism, it wasn't a surprise.
So you had already been diagnosed, or at least someone had already suggested to you that you might have autism.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay. What would you say is the most challenging thing about being the parent of what they call a special needs child?
Well, for her, it's getting her to eat. She eats almost nothing, and it's been a challenge for me to get her to put weight on. And then there's also trying to get her to do her chores. With my ADHD, it's hard for me to stay on top of a schedule, and if she's not on a schedule, she's very dependent on the rules. And if it's something like a schedule, then it comes across to her as a rule. So if I don't normally make her do chores, then it comes across as something unfair or unneeded for her to do if I suddenly make her do a chore. And then it becomes a battle. So if I just go ahead and keep a schedule, then she'll do it with no problem and get it done pretty quickly. So there's that too. I think those are the biggest problems.
Okay, so obviously this is hard for any mom to answer this, but what would you say that Natalie's best quality is?
She's really good at following directions when it's something that that she really, well, like in school when it comes to the tasks that they have her do, as long as there isn't any big distractions, she's really good at following directions, and she's very stickler on the rules. So it's actually, I don't almost never need to discipline her. And she loves to learn, just loves to learn. She just sucks in any information she can get. She's a wet sponge.
What would say are both similarities and differences that you and Natalie have when it comes to processing sensory input and the world around you, etc., etc.?
I think a lot of it, the sensory similarities that we have, I think looking at faces when we're having a conversation, especially when we're stressed, it's harder to do. It's harder to stay looking at someone's face. And keeping on top of chores when there isn't a set schedule, that's really hard for me to do. But if I keep up with the schedule, it's easier for me. It's less stressful. Was it similarities and differences, or just similarities?
Similarities.
Okay.
No, and differences. My bad. Go ahead.
Differences. I've never been a picky eater, ever. I put any kind of food in front of me, I'll eat it. Even if it's something I don't really like, I'll still eat it. My daughter, on the other hand, I've never seen a pickier eater. And I've had parents come up to me and say, "Oh, my child's so picky." And then we'll start comparing, and my daughter is still pickier. Even with other autistic children. And I think she's more sensitive to sound than I am, but I think it's because I have more of a tendency to repress my reactions, so it's hard for me to tell if there's a sensitivity to sound for her that's greater than mine. But I can tell that sometimes when I'm suddenly in the midst of loud noises, it's just hard for me to suddenly process as well as I could have, and I'm pretty sure it's the same for her. She seems to panic a little bit. I think those are mostly what helped me to be sure that she probably had autism, because of those similarities and the fact that I understood how she felt.
Are you and or Natalie involved, are either of you involved in community activities that benefit special needs children?
Up until summer, she was actually in swim classes, but it wasn't any special needs. Special needs
based,
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
It wasn't any special needs based activity, but from what the therapist was telling me, or the psychologist was telling me, having anything that has a guided instruction for play would have been perfect for her either way. And swim classes definitely had that. So she was involved in that, and she was doing great. Not initially, though, because the teacher wouldn't help to try and give more specific instructions when the kids couldn't understand it. And kids with ADHD or autism sometimes needed more specific instructions in order to be able to comprehend. But the next teacher after that was fantastic. If the student couldn't understand it, she'd find a new way to explain it. And she did so great. She's better than me now. And we had to stop doing it, though, because they have summer camp at that place for students, and she wasn't signed up for it, so she couldn't go.
And lastly, do you have any helpful suggestions that you would want to give to parents who have special needs children?
Autism isn't something that can be fixed. It isn't something that you can treat normally. If you can yell at a child and have them respond positively normally, that wouldn't work with autism, because if they aren't responding to you, it isn't because they're being defiant a lot of the times. It's probably because they don't understand, like, the instructions or something like that. Or if it's not something that is a regular part of their schedule, it's not something that they can easily adjust to. So, that's why a lot of kids with autism just can't handle it changes in schedules because they don't understand why it's happening. And if they can't understand why it's happening, it's something that's really hard for them to accept. So be patient and know that the way that they are to be given instructions are going to be different than most other kids. And they want to follow directions. They want to be obedient. The best way to help them with that is to be very specific and explain why things are happening. Explain why the rules are the way they are, the points of them, the reason for them. If they can understand that, and if you make them something that happens every time, you're consistent, then they'll be pretty obedient to you, and they'll be calmer and more easy to handle for doing that.
Nice. All right, so now introduce her.
This is Natalie.
Hi, Natalie.
Hi.
You got anything? Say wave to us. Is there anything that you want to say to your fans?
Wait, I have fans?
You sure do. People out there that love you and want to hear from you.
I'm sleepy.
Yeah, this probably wasn't the best day to take this interview, but take a look at me right in the camera and say, I love you, peoples.
I love you, peoples. Not personal.
So, Natalie, I have one question for you. What's your favorite thing to do in life?
Be calm.
Be calm. Well, that's a good thing to be. Anything else you want to say to all your fans?
You exist?
I do exist. Oh, they exist. Sorry. Yes. That it?
Yes.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Nicole and Natalie. And I hope you guys found this information helpful. That's all the time we have for today. But we'll see you right back here next week or next time, next video, next day, whatever, here on the AKF channel.